Welcome back. My name is Chris.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Steve.
And this, motherfuckers,
Oh, God.
is Streaming Things.
This is aggressively streaming things.
Coming in hard.
I had some coffee, and I fucking love movies.
Oh, jeez. What was that movie's death? What was the abortion lady upset about last week?
Birth Movies Death.
Birth movie's death. That's right.
R.I.P. R.I.P.
Movie's fetus.
That website died, ironically. I didn't even think about that illusion. Poor guys and gals. Welcome back to the show. If you've never been here before, I'm sorry. That was a weird intro. If you've been here for a few years, you get it. You know how we are.
You know us. We're rascals.
It's all in good fun. We're rascals.
Little rascal.
We do love TV and film, and we love our listeners. We love to be heard, our voices to be heard. We're speaking now. You're listening. It's wonderful. I'll say right at the top, it's very important to us that you engage with us if you so feel the need. So if you want to do that and you're just sitting there itching, I don't know how to do this in 2021. How would I talk to these fellers? Well, person obviously in Eastern Kentucky, you can reach us via email at streamingthingspod@gmail.com. You can just write a little letter, press the send button with a little subject line or no subject. That's even sometimes more intriguing. We'll click it, we'll read it, and we'll respond. You can also follow us on Twitter. I'm at CMichaelWrites. Andy's on the Twitter as well.
At Andy most days.
And Steven, the best of us.
Steve May. Wait for it. 13.
Steve May 13. 13th of his name, in fact.
Yes.
The other 12 Steves, don't talk to them. We've looked them up. Not worth your time.
No, one guy will trick you with a nice turtle picture on his profile, but he will not be tweeting.
You're a garbage person.
Today's episode, we're very excited. So we decided to talk about comfort food movies and shows. So movies and shows that we turn to in our darkest hours, things that have carried us through life. They just make us feel good. We've seen them 100 times and it's time to watch them again, right? That's a good definition, I think, right?
I just compiled a huge list of comfort foods. I've got Twinkies. I've got... Oh, no. I'm unprepared.
You fucks with the Twinkies hard, bro?
Do they still make Twinkies?
Oh, yeah.
They do. I would imagine after Zombieland, they had a huge spike.
Well, weren't they going to stop selling them at one point? But there was a huge public outcry and they're like, nah, just kidding.
No.
Why would they do that?
I think the company was
I don't
being
even
bought
like
out.
Twinkies, but I like to know that they're there.
Isn't it Hostess?
I don't remember. I remember there being some controversy about this maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
A Twinkie controversy.
I'm going to look it up.
That's an oxymoron, Steve.
That's true.
There's no such thing as a Twinkie
But
controversy.
as the name, a Twinkie can survive anything, even a controversy. So
That's true.
yeah.
It's true. Be careful not to Google twink controversy.
Oh shit! Oh no, my phone's blocking me out.
While he Googles Twinkies, typically we start the show with a little tete-a-tete like this. And then we move into our Crossing Streams segment where we talk about what we've been up to since last we recorded, things we've been streaming. Steve, have you found any kind of Twinkie controversy?
I didn't find what I was looking for. I just found a headline that read Hostess Brands, Twinkie History Spiced with Murder.
There you go.
I'm going to put that in my read as later.
Yeah, definitely flag that one. Speaking of murder, Andy, what have you been streaming?
All right. So,
assuming.
Mine is kind of a twofer. So as part of, at Steve's recommendation, listening back to previous episode, I decided to try Returnal. So I bought Returnal.
Oh, dope.
It is a time loop game wherein you work your way through these alien worlds and you continually die. Only your character is aware that she's continually dying. And then you go back into the world and you find your old bodies and there's audio logs that you can listen to where you learn about the lore, where previous versions of yourself have made it further and learned things. It's very cool. Absolutely recommend it. Housemarque makes amazing games. But so as a part of that, while playing that game, I got super ready to watch a time loop movie. And we had talked about comfort. We had talked about the fact that we were going to record an episode about comfort foods. And so I watched Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Which I discovered actually the director, whose name is escaping me, prefers the title Live, Die, Repeat. I always thought that's dumb. It's called Edge of Tomorrow. Why are they trying to rebrand it that? It was actually the studios that forced the Edge of Tomorrow title on it. It's supposed to be called Live, Die, Repeat, and they changed that. It's based off of a Japanese book called All You Need Is Kill, I believe.
I love how there's this, it's 3 controversially bad names, like arguably bad names for this movie. There's All You Need Is Kill, Edge of Tomorrow, and Live, Die, Repeat.
All you need is kill.
And none of them are good titles. But it's Doug Liman, so the dude that did like Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Swingers, Born Identity.
All you little beautiful babies.
Yeah. But yeah, so I watched Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat. And that is absolutely a comfort food movie for me. I love that movie so much. It's honestly one of my favorite movies because I love time loop movies. The action is amazing. Steve beat me in our quiz. You asked what are the aliens called, and he pulled it out of his ass, the mimics.
Not literally.
Super, super cool conceit to have the time loop happen as an action movie. And I like that they kind of have an explanation for the time loop. Usually it's just, there's no real why. It's
magic,
a time loop, guys. Who cares? But this is one that like they use it as a plot device, and like you can potentially fall out of the loop, and then what are the potential repercussions of that? I want a sequel so bad. It is such a cool universe, and I want more of it.
Aren't they supposed to be making a sequel to that?
It's been in development hell for many, many years.
Because that movie came out in what, like 2014, 2015?
2014, 2015, something like that. But so basically, and I read an interview with the director, 2014, read an interview with the director, and he said like, we've been working on the script, and it's not done, but the script for this one, the original, was not done until they were like almost done filming, apparently. It's just one of those. And so he said, really, they just need Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt to pull the trigger, and then it'll happen. Although I don't even want it with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. I want like somewhere else in the world while this invasion is happening, someone else is experiencing the same thing. I want that story. I want a concurrent, not a prequel, not a sequel. I want a concurrent soul.
Classic.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you do. Anyway, that's what I've been streaming.
Awesome.
Nice.
Steve, what the hell have you been up to?
I've got a lot more than I usually do.
Okay.
So first, right off the top, I started streaming. It's on Disney Plus, and that is the Disney Plus. It is the sequel to the Clone Wars. It is the Bad Batch. The Star Wars, The Bad Bitch. If you're unaware of the show, it's kind of a, the next evolution in the Clone Wars. So if you watch the Clone Wars, it's made by the same people, same animation style, only this time it focuses on a very specific group of clones from the last season of Clone Wars called the Bad Batch, which are clone troopers who are, they're born and bred, but they have genetic defects, which give them positive traits that could be used in battle. So one guy is, they basically have superhero powers. One guy's like unnaturally strong. One guy has supernatural sensing abilities. One guy has super fast reflexes, which makes him a great marksman. And another guy's really good with computers. So
what a lame superpower. I'd be pissed. Looking around at the other guys, he's like bending cars in half and shit. And I'm like, yeah, I can type really fast, guys.
Yeah, I can fix your computers.
In a science fictional world, computers are
What's funny,
very important.
They added in the episode there was a 4-episode arc that introduced the characters in Clone Wars, and in that 4-episode arc, another clone who is like a fan favorite, his name is Echo. He is saved and he becomes a member of the Bad Batch, but his role becomes like, I'm also good with tech. So there's like they got that
Stay
covered.
in your lane, dude.
they compete.
Yeah.
So the Bad Batch was in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
The final season.
Yeah. In the final season, there were 4 episodes that introduced them and kind of showed you who
Was
they
it
were.
setting it up for this show? Like, was that the plan, or did they?
I don't know, because the last season of the Clone Wars was always sort of made of there were a couple different series, like storylines that were originally supposed to air earlier on, but the Clone Wars was famously discontinued when I think when Disney first bought them, they kind of put a hiatus on the Clone Wars. So the episodes that were finished at that time were released on Netflix. And then I guess there was, it's such a popular series that Disney was like, okay, you can finish some of the storylines you already had like prevised and written. And the Bad Batch was one of those. As far as I know. And for whatever reason, they decided that they are now going to make the next continuation of the show based around this group of characters specifically. I'm not sure why, because if I'm all honest, and in all honesty, I'm not that huge of a fan of the Bad Batch arc in Clone Wars. It's okay.
I thought that the last season of Clone Wars was supposed to have been amazing.
It is really good. But like with all things Clone Wars, you have arcs that are amazing. Like the last 4 episodes of the entire series is like some of the best Star Wars you'll ever see. But then there's also an arc in that very same season that is total bullshit and sucks, and I hate it. And then the Bad Batch is kind of in the middle. It's not like terrible, but it's also not something I honestly would have remembered if they had not made a show about these characters afterwards.
They should have called it the mediocre batch.
Have you seen both the episodes that have been released?
Yes, I have.
And that's
actually, I take that back. One came out today. I have not seen the one that just came out today. So I've only seen the first episode, which was like an hour and 15 minutes long.
Dang.
It was a longer episode.
It was long. So I watched it. I was going to it's in spoiler alert for my streaming things section, right? Or crossing stream section. I did not know that it was like a sequel to Clone Wars. I thought it was its own isolated thing, a la The Mandalorian, which is why I would have never deigned to pick it up, because I've never seen any of the animated Star Wars spinoffs. I hate the animation in all of them. And so like, it's really difficult if you don't like the aesthetics of the animation of something. It's really difficult to get into the story. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel that way at all? Or
they do. They look ugly. Everybody.
Yeah, they're pretty hideous.
Well, Clone Wars specifically, especially the last episode or the last season, was really, really good. I mean, they still have that same style where it's like, it looks the same, but there's just something about it that looks far more polished. The lighting's better. The texture.
In the Bad Batch?
No, in Clone Wars.
Season.
I think the Bad Batch is a small step back in terms of their animation. There's something about the way they move, and specifically the textures on their faces, that doesn't register as well as the last season did.
I feel like everybody has an ugly nose in the animated Star Wars.
I don't know why they can't do something like Animatrix. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love that.
Something just zany, some kind of, I don't know, even Japanese animation, that would be beautiful. Like, just fucking go balls to the wall. Hire some ballsy people. Or ovaries people.
They continued the animation style from the Clone Wars movie, right? Didn't that come first?
Right. Yeah. It's the same style. But there's just something about the Bad Batch that I feel like is half a step back in the terms of the quality of it and compared to the last season of Clone Wars. Most people aren't going to recognize it, but as I was watching it, I'm like, there's something off about this. It's not quite where it was.
Do you think I have a prayer to enjoy the rest of it without having seen the Clone Wars?
Did you enjoy this episode overall?
I mean, see, I know who like General Grievous is, and I know obviously the gist of the story. I know what Order 66 is. And so I just didn't suspect at all that I was missing out on anything, or that these were continuation characters in any way.
Well, that's the thing, is Clone Wars is always an anthology show where most of the storylines didn't really connect to one another. It was like, here's the 4-episode story arc of this specific story.
Oh, really? Okay.
That may not necessarily play ever again. As long as you have a general idea of like, who's Obi-Wan Kenobi,
which is why
Skywalker.
Those 4 episodes you talk about are the best, and like completely separate from and different than some of the other things that they did in that show. I get it now.
Yeah.
It's not like Ozymandias is the episode of Breaking Bad that you love inside this giant story. It's just all these completely separate things. Okay.
That was a little Ryan Johnson reference there. He directed that episode.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. The Clone Wars is always very like, you can take it in separations. That's why if you ever want to get into Clone Wars, I highly suggest going to episode suggestions, because people have compiled like, these are the good story arcs.
I can pick and
season.
choose even.
Yeah. So you can just go like, okay, because they're not even in order. So like the first 3 episodes of the entire series technically chronologically takes place midway through the whole story.
Quotes.
Yeah, I did chronologically. But no, the Bad Batch specifically takes place immediately as Order 66 starts.
That was cool to watch.
Continues because the conceit is, because they have these genetic defects, they don't have the mental implants that all the other clones do that make them easily controlled to turn on their Jedi generals. So the Bad Batch are like, this is kind of fucked up and wrong. Wow, the Republic's becoming an empire now. That's messed up. I don't know where we fit in this. And then Grand Moff Tarkin, who you'll know from A New Hope, shows up, and it's kind of like, I guess he's being propped up as going to be the main villain of this series, because he's kind of like, I don't like these clones. Let's get rid of them. But they're doing something in the show that I think is something I've personally wanted in Star Wars, and that is giving agency to the Kaminoans. The Kaminoans are the weird, tall aliens that make the clones.
Oh, cool.
So
long necks.
Yeah. So in the movies and the show, the Kaminoans are always like, yeah, we made these clones go ahead and use them.
Oh, Camino. I get what you're saying there. That's the planet, right?
Yeah.
Kaminoans?
Camino is the planet. The aliens are called Kaminoans.
Nice.
Duh.
Yeah, you nerd. But like, I always felt like, I feel like there's really good stories you can tell with those characters that are making the clones, and they never really had agency other than like standing in the background while other characters like, wow, these clones sure are great. And now they're kind of introducing this concept of the Kaminoans, like also not understanding where their place in the empire is going forward. And I just like that little wrinkle they're kind of throwing in. So I'll continue watching the show. I wasn't blown away by it, but then again, I also wasn't the audience for, yearning for more Bad Batch stories, because I also don't like the design of the Bad Batch themselves. The one guy looks like fucking Rambo. The one guy just...
Yeah, is that like a skin deformity that...
It's a tattoo.
Oh, okay.
So in the Clone Wars, because, you have so many characters who are clones of the same guy.
Right.
There was a big storyline arc where the Jedi specifically were encouraging the clones to adopt their own unique personalities. And that meant some of them got trippy hairstyles. Some of them got facial tattoos, just to look different. And that guy has chosen to have a weird skull face tattoo on half of his head and then long hair and tie it up like Rambo.
So in a weird way, the clones, if you will, are sort of analogous to an inept version of the Unsullied from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Bad Batch is like a small troop of Grey Worms, you could say. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I'm just making sure I'm following. I said I couldn't compare them directly to the Unsullied because the Unsullied are the most fierce and well-trained warriors in Westeros. And
Castrados.
Yeah.
They are castrated.
Castrados. And... the clones are stormtroopers, which we all know are not even very good soldiers in Mediocresville, right?
Technically, if I can push up my nerd glasses,
go ahead.
Clones are better than the stormtroopers because the stormtroopers.
Oh, there was that one-off line where Tarkin was like, "We can start using conscripted."
Yes,
conscripted regular dudes. And he said that it was weird for
verbiage. and it's well known that the clones were very, very great. A great army, but then the stormtroopers are much more lacking, but there's also a higher number of them. There's more stormtroopers than there were clone troopers.
Well, if the Empire would pay a fucking living wage, they might get some good soldiers. And I think that's the real story here. You know what I'm saying? I like the Bad Batch. I probably won't watch it anymore, but I tried. I was like, ooh, I want some more Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it more because, like you said, it's Star Wars and I feel like I kind of have to watch it.
I wanted to rinse the stink of the Rise of Skywalker out of me.
You gotta get in deep.
I do have to get in deeper.
That.
No, you don't. I tried and couldn't even finish it a second time.
The other thing I've been streaming, I'll go into this a little bit. We were talking about comfort foods, and I have a weird history with comfort foods where a lot of my former comfort foods growing up, I can no longer watch because they bring up, memories that make me sad and depressed. And there was a movie that was like, you know what? I want to try to watch this again because I used to love this movie. I used to watch it all the time because it made me feel good, but I haven't in a while because of things that happened in my life that I associate with that movie. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to watch it. Be damned my depression if it comes up. So I watched it, and it was a little movie called WALL-E.
WALL-E.
Also on Disney Plus. And that movie is still a delight. And I'm happy to report that I did not fall into my normal slovenly ways watching it. It did not affect me in the way I was anticipating to. It sat there, and for the first time in like 10 years, just sat there and watched WALL-E and enjoyed it for what it was, which is a really sweet movie about robots falling in love.
I didn't know you were going to say falling in love. Steve.
Falling in love. Just getting in deep with that love. And I think this is, and then the third thing I want to bring up is something that I know we also watched together, Chris. I don't know if you watched it, Andy. But,
I did not.
It is on Netflix. It is a movie called The Mitchells versus the Machines. And I'm going to hand this over to Chris because I feel like I've been talking too much.
No, I can never hear too much, Steve. And I'm sure our listeners would agree. But I laughed when you said, oh no, our Crossing Stream segments are going to overlap a lot this week when we were texting, because I felt damn sure that you would have seen The Bad Batch by the time. And my other thing is something else that you talked about last week. So I was giggling inside, but with unworried glee. But yeah, I did watch The Mitchells versus the Machines on Netflix. It's a brand new film that just dropped on Netflix. It's animated as well, and it's actually beautifully animated, unlike
gorgeous.
most Star Wars things. So such a beautiful movie. So it was produced by Lord and Miller.
No shit.
So it's very into the Spider-Verse-y, which is why we wanted you to watch it, because it's like
I didn't know
it's
that.
bonkers, really off the wall, awesome stuff.
It's literally the most gorgeous animated film I've ever seen in terms of just the way it looks aesthetically, and also the style they're going for is very, very hip and current. Like, it's the first movie I've seen that really kind of embraces the TikTok-ness of media nowadays, and like Snapchat and all those filters and stuff. And they seamlessly bring it into this animation that just makes it pop even more, and doesn't seem like cringy, that I think a lot of films that try to do that fall into that trap.
I mean, they put like live action YouTube footage into the animation at certain points, and it doesn't seem like how it sounds at all. It's very well done. It seems hip. And yeah, I mean, it's very bold. It reminds me of like some parts are like kind of Wes Anderson-y, if that makes any sense. Like, it'll completely change the aesthetic of the film for a moment. You know how he'll drop into like a puppet show randomly and just finish out a scene with that, and you're not like, what the fuck? It makes complete sense for the time, you know, like okay, Steve Zissou's, okay, I get it. Yeah, this is exactly what needs to happen right now. That's kind of how Mitchell's vs. the Machines is. And the voice of the main character is Abby Jacobson, who I referred to last week from Broad City. So I was very excited to see that. And it's got Danny McBride voicing her dad. It's heartwarming. It's hilarious. A lot of the plot beats I found to be predictable and, you know, nothing, what's the word? Exhilarating or just controversial and new there.
Earth-shattering in that
None of
department.
that. You can see exactly where it's going. It's a very basic theme about an estranged father and daughter trying to connect before she goes to college. But I had a great time. It was hilarious. I watched it with my son and my wife, which I felt like, you know, was kind of how it was intended. And I don't often do that, as bad as that sounds. And we all got something else out of it, I think. And we were all giggling at different parts. I just thought it was a fucking blast. I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. I think Lord and Miller are just killing it. And I would say it's the most beautiful animated film I've seen since Into the Spider-Verse is what I would say. I think that's still my favorite.
There's just such a kinetic energy to even the smallest things that the characters do. Like, even from them looking side to side, there's this boom, boom, boom. There's a snappiness to it.
Yeah.
And just the performances are great. The robots in it. So so it's a family that they're traveling across country to get her to college. And while they're doing that, the robot apocalypse happens.
Oh, okay.
And they become like the last free humans, and it's up to the end of the world is up to them to save. But it's just like a small Midwestern family. And also, that's another thing that I was so impressed with is, like, you spend a little bit of time in the beginning of the movie with the family in their
good
home.
amount of time.
Yeah. And
I think it's over 30 minutes.
Of any movie I've ever seen, they get small details about what a Midwestern home, like a small family home, looks like that no movie gets right ever. Like, just the way that the house is constructed, down to like what the characters do. Like, I don't know if you notice this, the main character, her hands have art all over them. Like, she wrote, like, there's like little smiley faces on the tips of her fingers, which is shit that like little, you know, teenagers who are artsy kind of,
yeah, you know, I did all that shit.
I would draw like little shit on my hands all the time. It's small little details that really kind of bring you into this very manic family. And even though the plot in and of itself isn't something to write home about, you know, a continuation of getting the small things right is just the nature of how the characters relate to one another. Like, it's so easy. As soon as the little brother came on screen, I was like, okay, they're going to be like antagonistic towards each other and pick on each other. No, they have a really loving, friendly, best friend relationship. And that's one of my favorite things in the movie is how close the brother and sister are. And I love the brother and how he's like super into dinosaurs and stuff. It's like the most little kid thing ever. I love it. It's so good. The only thing that watching the movie that I was kind of unsure about, because I started it up, I'm like, man, the animation's great. I wasn't super into Danny McBride's voice acting the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Well, I think it's tough with characters like him. And I would say the same thing about, you know, Morgan Freeman or Matthew McConaughey, when they have such a distinctive voice.
Well, I didn't realize it was Danny McBride.
Really?
I knew nothing about the movie going into it, because I actually had not even heard of this movie until the day I seen it. Friend of the show, Phil, he texted me. He was like, hey, have you seen this movie? You have to see it. And I had never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And on his suggestion alone, I went home and watched it. So I didn't know who was in it or anything. But the first 10 minutes, I'm like, man, who's ever voicing this dad is trying way too fucking hard and isn't
Clearly a noob.
like, and but then like halfway through the movie, it gels. It finally clicked. But something about, and I rewatched it a second time, so I've actually watched this movie twice.
Dang. New comfort food.
Right. But I still felt the same way watching the second time. It's like, man, the first 10 minutes, he is not firing on all cylinders. But then it comes together really well. And like, it's not a problem at all. Like they crush it by the end of the film. By the end of the film, like you're crying because of like, it's so nice and happy. I love it.
I definitely cried a lot. And I think it's a movie lover's movie, which I think is why Andy will love it. I mean, the daughter, her whole character arc is that she wants to go to film school.
Oh, cool.
And so she spends most of the movie making all these like little short films on her camcorder and doing, going into After Effects and doing her own effects. And the movie's based around that because it's through her perspective. So it's broken into blocks of her films and stuff.
Oh, so the YouTube stuff makes more sense.
And that's, yeah, exactly. Gotcha. And so then there's some really cool film allusions in it. I think at least, like, I think it's not a spoiler to say, but the great robot company's name is PAL, which I think is a reference to HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Well, there's like visual allusions to that too with the minion robots.
And then there's a wonderful Kill Bill plug that gave me, that's when it took it from 3.5 to 4.5 stars on that set piece alone, which I'm not going to spoil where that comes in, but it's hilarious and unexpected. So I highly recommend it. I think obviously Steve loves it. He's seen it twice. Go watch The Mitchells versus the Machines, available now on Netflix. Just dropped. I haven't watched much else. I do want to mention I did watch more of Broad City, and I know this is stupid, but I'm plugging it again because this show, again, I think I'm the last person on the planet because it came out in like 2014 to watch the show.
Nay, I'm the last.
Fair enough.
I haven't watched
on
it.
Comedy Central.
Right. Again, it's on Hulu. I watched another like 16, 18 episodes. This show is fucking hilarious. I love these women. It is one of the most genius things I've ever seen. It is such a joy. You have to watch Broad City. Anyway, that's it for Broad City.
Real quick aside, we made fun of not hearing about Broad City because it was on Comedy Central last week. Yeah. And no one watches Comedy Central anymore. Today on Twitter, it was blowing up. Did you see the Tom Holland Singing in the Rain dance off?
Oh, yeah.
I did see that many years ago.
Well, today's like its 4th anniversary since it came out. And so like it was making the rounds on Twitter and I'd never seen it before. And I started watching like, this is amazing. How have I never heard about this? And then in the corner, I see the Comedy Central logo. That's why.
Buried in the central. Ironically, no longer the center. I also watched the finale of the show Invincible, which I had not seen yet. Steve talked about it last week. I just want to plug that. What a batshit crazy ending to tack on to a show that started off so batshit crazy and then kind of turned into a normal-ish adventure superhero show in the middle part of the sandwich, but just the bread on each side. Oh my God. So I want to just say, people that listen to the show a long time know I'm a gentleman, but I'm also fairly uncouth.
You're a bit of a scoundrel.
I'm a bit of a scoundrel, as they say. Somewhat of a rake, you might even say. I'm definitely no slouch or prude when it comes to, raucous sexuality or horror or murder, right?
Murder.
So
violence.
I say all that to say, I think
sound like Olivia Colman in Hot Fuzz.
Murder. The Invincible season 1 finale is probably the most horrifically violent thing I've ever seen. Ever in film or TV. And you can even lump comic, and keep in mind, I'm a huge fan of The Boys. I mean, anything you want. I mean, Human Centipede, because that kind of shit is just like almost hilarious at how over the top it is. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it's just like, I have never seen so many like innocent people be just roped into massive extreme violence with no provocation. It breaks rules for what you're allowed to do in TV and film. I mean, there is no saving the cat. There's nothing to it other than you're not allowed to do that. And yet I'm watching it Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And the cool thing about not the cool thing about it, but the impressive thing about it is I still don't think, even though it's definitely the most messed up thing I've seen on TV probably in a while, I don't feel like it's gratuitous, because even though it's messed up, it also is serving a purpose storyline wise specifically for Mark.
No, I agree. I agree.
And like it doesn't strike me like if you watch like Hostel or something like that, where that's like gratuitously violent and gory, and I'm like, I'm out. But this, even though it was like even more messed up than anything that they do in Hostel or anything like that, it's an animated form, so it's a little bit more palatable, but still it's like,
and I think that's why it affected me so much. Like, I don't know about you, but I was like, it was hard to watch. I was genuinely saddened and like, oh my God. And like, I kept thinking about your explanation for it when I was watching the ending, because it doesn't end right there. Thank God. Like, there's a little bit of some breathing room and some other plot threads to explore before the finale denouement. But the curtain's closed, if you will. But yeah, I highly recommend Invincible if we haven't talked it up enough. I mean, this show, it's
been like 5 episodes straight of one of us talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, light years better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think it's got more to say than WandaVision, and it's right up there with The Boys season 2 for me. If you're into The Boys, you'll absolutely love Invincible.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like The Boys, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with you. I know you probably have some superhero fatigue, as do we all, but Invincible's sort of an antidote to that rather than contributes to it, because it's a critique on the whole superhero. It takes a lot of the familiar
tropes and kind of flips them on in their head in a very unique way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I haven't gone back to it yet, but I'm excited to. That ending sounds awesome.
It's absolutely bonkers.
Like I'll say, like, if you haven't watched it yet, just watch the first episode. And if the end of the first episode doesn't hook you, then just bow out then and there. But if it does hook you, you're in for a great ride.
Okay.
All right. I think that's all we have this week on the Crossing Stream segment. It is time for Check the Gate.
Checking gates. Checking the gates, please. Checking gates. Checking gates. Checking the gates. Check the gates. Check the gate. Watch that. Show what you got. Check the gate. Check it.
All right, we got some big, hot, steaming news here for you this week. If you don't know, Check the Gate is the segment where we here at Streaming Things bring you the hottest, freshest, steamiest piles of hot takes in the news on TV and film ever that you can find literally anywhere else. But instead, you're finding them here because you're a cool person. Did you guys hear about this Sebastian Stan and Lily James Pam and Tommy business? Have you seen this?
No.
It took the Twitterverse by storm yesterday. So if you don't know, now you know. Sucker. Okay. It just popped in my head. It's an earworm. So if you don't know, Sebastian Stan of Winter Soldier fame and Lily James of a bunch of stuff fame, including Baby Driver, love it. They're playing Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson in a show. I think it's a Hulu original called Pam and Tommy, about the fabled release of their sex tape in the 90s, right? So that's the show's premise. They released character photos of them in character, and everybody's been kind of like, Sebastian Stan can't be Tommy, but specifically Lily James got massive criticism.
She doesn't look like
anything like Pamela Anderson, right? So yesterday,
Pamela.
Oh, that's how you pronounce it?
It's Barbarella, I believe.
Barbarella. Oh my God.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So they got a lot of criticism, like, this isn't going to work. And then yesterday, the photos of them in character were released, and it is fucking shocking how much like them they look. I'm trying to find a picture of it. So if you guys haven't seen it, I can't believe I get to be the one to unveil this for you.
Is that a credit to the makeup department, or is it just?
It is indeed. I mean, obviously Lily James gets some credit. So this is Lily as Pamela Anderson.
Is there a side-by-side photo?
Yeah, there is, but that's not the one that I pulled up. So on the left is Lily, and on the right is Lily and Sebastian Stan.
Oh, wow.
And everybody on Twitter was freaking the fuck out.
Wow, that is really...
I cannot believe that that's Lily James.
You could have just said, like, oh, this is a photo of Pam and Tommy.
No, everyone thought, yeah, what are you doing? What's Lily James doing posting a photo of Pamela Anderson?
Right.
Let's see what you look like. And then they found out it was her. And they're like, what?
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
Incredible.
She's biting his nipple.
She is indeed. That's an exact recreation of a photo of Pam and Tommy. I'm really excited for this show. I was talking to my buddy. We were playing Apex Legends, and he watches a lot of movies. He was like, "Why would anyone want to see a show about Pam and Tommy? That's lame." And I was like,
a lot of people would.
I'm definitely super excited for this show.
Yeah. I'm like, that's not something that targets me specifically, but I know like my sister and her generation would probably go hard on that.
Here's the original photo. Did you see that, Andy?
I did.
Yeah. Here's the original photo,
Pretty
Steve.
dead on.
Yeah, that's insane.
So anyway, I think
These are the same thing.
kudos to the makeup department, and I'm very excited for Pam and Tommy. No word from me, at least, on when Pam and Tommy will debut on Hulu. Did you guys see the Stranger Things season 4 teaser that they recently released?
No.
What?
What?
Why you
the
didn't text us
ever loving shit.
It's not the same teaser they released like last
It's
year.
a second teaser that has to do a lot with it looks like Eleven's in some trouble. Should we pause and let you guys take a gander at this?
Let me down and not even know that was a thing.
Do me a favor, pop a Ya Meaner on there, and you guys go ahead and watch this.
A few minutes later.
Okay. We had to pause the show because I'm not going to sit idly by with Andy and Steve not having seen the season 4 Stranger Things newest teaser, because that is the Streaming Things bread and butter. So we paused it to watch it. What did you guys think? Are
It
you
looks
teased?
so good. It looks so good. A little Magic 8 Ball action going on.
Steve looks teased.
I was very teased. My loins have been tickled. I'm just so happy to have seen everything that was on there, even though they didn't show a lot.
I think the Duffer Brothers are famously spoiler averse, and that gets me going. I respect that to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. And there was a little bit of Dr. Brenner juice in there.
Oh, yeah.
Very excited about that. Did you think that's an allusion to the recapture of 11? Or do you think it's more obviously just like some flashback and delving deeper into what went on when she was there?
Oh, I don't know. I would have thought that it would have been flashback. It didn't occur to me
think
that
so
she had
too.
been captured. But
Yeah, is Dr. Brenner dead? I can't remember if he's supposed to be dead.
He could very easily be in the Upside Down
he got
or
demodogged in the
Right.
season 2, right?
He wasn't in season 2, I don't think, right? He just disappeared. I don't know. I'd have to do some research.
no,
It's
I
been a
don't
minute.
remember.
It's been
he
a
got
minute.
completely demogorgoned.
I know they made it they didn't specifically come out and say this guy's definitely dead. There was definitely room for him to return at some point.
Especially with all the supernatural elements. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
I would
surprised.
assume that was
He could be a Force
flashback.
ghost.
I think it's time for a rewatch.
Can you imagine Force Ghost, Dr. Brenner?
11, you must go to the Dagobah system. Seek out Master Yoda, the scientist who instructed me.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want, now this sounds terrible and I don't mean it how you could audio clip it to mean. So you can just pause your little trigger fingers. But I think with COVID, there might be what's the word when it's like something bad has an element of good? What's the phrase? There's a euphemism for that.
Problematic.
No. Maybe not icing on the cake, because that is something good on something also good. But when something is bad and you make something good out of it, what is that? Why am I not? I'm blanking.
Lemonade from a lemon?
Shits.
You could say no, Andy. I was not. When life gives you lemon.
Chicken.
Okay, let's go with that.
Salad out of chicken shit.
Let's go with Andy's. When life gives you COVID, you make COVID aid. Oh no!
Oh, you made it worse. You made it worse, damn it.
What I mean by that is, let me just please rush to that because it's getting terrible. With the pause in the world that we've had, perhaps the Duffer Brothers, in fact, they've said so, had adequate time to really contemplate where this story was going and where it needed to end and what it's going to be like. And I think, season 1 was such a genius entrance into the story, and they had this massive undertaking of weaving in all of these homages with this wonderful new story. And then of course you got season 2 and 3, they had to follow that up. Where's the pressure? There was no quite sophomore slump, but I think we can all agree season 1 is just a shining achievement.
She slumped a little bit.
Where season 1's a 10, season 2 is like a 9.
Right.
Yeah.
I see. I would be 10, 7, 8
Okay.
rating the seasons.
And so I think there's the potential for season 4 to reach the heights of season 1. because of the COVID is what I'm saying.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm feeling that.
And I'm very excited to see what they do with all the time that they've had to think. And they've said that season 4 will definitely not be the end and that they know exactly where it's going to end, unlike Game of Thrones. And so they're headed in a definite direction. And I'm very excited. And the teaser came out of nowhere for me. Unfortunately, there's still no fucking release date in sight on that teaser.
The first trailer came out a year ago, right? Where it was Hopper in
Revealed that Hopper was,
in the gulag or something.
That's so funny to picture him just getting dragged in there with a chance to respawn. That's
I just want to
awesome.
know, I can't wait for that scene. I hope they show the moment he teleports over to Russia and he's like, hey guys, you got any coffee or anything?
Maybe some contemplation.
Das Vidanya, American.
Okay, so that's the Stranger Things season 4 teaser. I also read about an adaptation of a Dark Horse Comics property. Big fan of Dark Horse, called Lady Killer, starring Blake.
Tom Hanks?
No, different one. Different one.
damn.
I get it though. I get it. Starring
Brothers, right?
No, starring Blake Lively and written by Diablo Cody, which is the second. I feel like Diablo Cody's been laying low for a while, and now she's having a codissance. Diablo Sans was right there, and I just ducked under and went for Codissance. I'm fired. And also something else that you get on our news segment that's just willfully lacking in actual news. Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd are launching a podcast. Have you guys heard about this?
Lord of the Rings podcast?
No, I don't think it's a Lord of the Rings based podcast.
It is. Yeah, that's what I read.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. See, there you go. I need backup on this news shit because I just read stuff and write it down incomplete and never return to it.
Pretty exciting stuff, dude.
I love Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd.
I'm the tall one.
I hope it's called Second Breakfast because that's, I feel like a missed opportunity if they don't call it that.
What about 11sies?
Sure. And then Alan Moore. Are you a fan of his?
I am.
I know Andy
He's kind
is.
of pretentious.
I'm a fan
I
of
love
his,
work.
but he's not a fan of anybody's.
That's fair. That's fair.
Why do you keep bothering me?
So he's announcing a 5-part fantasy epic. And so you know how much I love fantasy epics?
Yeah, big fan.
And you know how much I love Alan Moore? And so now I have like
Give me more.
an Alan Moore fantasy epic sandwich in which to sink my teeth on the horizon. I'm very excited about that.
So a comic, right?
I think
just like
a novel. I think a novel series. Again, this is me just willfully not exploring the facets of this news story that would be actually useful to you and our listeners.
That's okay, man. Alan Moore's doing a thing.
This is the podcast version of the friend that reads the article headlines and not the article and just tells you about stuff. And then when you ask questions and probe, actually intrigued, they go, I don't know, man.
You're anti-vaxxer and
Yeah, I'm the flat earther of the show, just bringing you hot news. That's all I have this week on Check the Gate. Do you guys have any hot, fresh, steaming piles of news for anybody?
There was a lot of Marvel Phase 4 stuff that came out this week.
Nah. I'm just kidding. What is it, Steve?
Oh, they just released, some release dates. Black Widow, July 9th this year. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, September 3rd this year. A lot of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of scrubbing through. The Eternals is coming out November 5th of this year, which
I
surprised
think
me.
it's just Eternals now.
It is. You're right. Well, yeah, you're right because their logo is just Eternals, but the headline has the Eternal still.
Sean Parker showed up, played by Justin Timberlake, and he said, drop the. It's cleaner.
It's cleaner. Spider-Man No Way Home, December 17th of this year. That should be fun.
I saw a lot of trolling of people recreating that graphic with all the release dates and stuff.
dude, I
and
saw one with cheers.
it would just say Wings 2023. Really going balls to the wall this year at this phase, Marvel.
This one was interesting to me. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness comes out March 25th of next year, but I think the original release date was today, the day we're recording right now.
Really?
I think so.
That makes me sad. A moment of silence for what should have been Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Very sad. Wow. How disrespectful, Andy. Goodness gracious.
This is madness.
Talk about a multiverse.
But yeah, there's a lot of different, more vague. But I think the big thing that came out from that announcement was just they announced Black Panther 2, which is called, I think, Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever.
Wakanda Forever.
Which leads me to believe, what are they going to call the fourth one? because it's right there.
Oh, forever. I get it.
But that was the most interesting one that stuck out to me. So yeah, more Black Panther, but I'm interested to see what they do. That can't be an easy situation to be in.
Definitely not. Yeah.
It's bizarre that they're not recasting.
But also, how could they?
Yeah, I'm not upset at that. I think that's probably the best move, to just have a brand new Black Panther. I almost said Pink Panther, which is a completely different thing.
I mean, also, yeah, that too. I get where you're coming from, Steve.
Steve Martin plays the Black Panther. And Black
God,
Panther.
What was that word we said? Problematic?
Indeed. COVID AIDS.
Oh, that's the one.
I've given up trying to be someone I'm not.
You're leaning into it, man.
Don't change for anybody.
Just be yourself. You're a piece of shit, Chris. Don't hide it.
You're a rogue.
I also read in other news, what's his name? Dave Bautista?
Yep.
Has decided that Guardians 3 will be his last performance as Drax. And so he, of course, said, so there was news breaking that Drax would no longer appear in the Guardians universe. And then Dave Bautista tweeted, no, just not me as Drax. I'm 54. I'll be 54 by the time the third one comes out. Everything's going to start sagging visibly soon or something. LOL. Right. And then just the internet in a touching moment just rose up like, no, if you are not Drax, Drax is not in the movie, and even James Gunn was like, yeah, absolutely, buddy. Like, respect your acting choices. Go do something else if you want to. But yeah. Drax is gone without you.
And Dave Bautista,
I agree.
He seems like a cool dude.
Absolutely. I'm excited cause you've seen quite a few. I guess it's normal that organic, rather, is what I mean, that WWE wrestlers would branch out into movies because there's a lot of legitimate acting that goes on in the wrestling world, but some not so much. Like Shawn Michaels, I watched him. I don't know if you remember, there was like a bicycle cop show on USA back when I was into wrestling, and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels both guest starred on separate episodes of that.
Oh, that sounds great.
They are not good actors. No. They open zero cans of whoop ass in the acting world, right? They're breaking zero hearts.
I think they figured that out, and that's why you don't see them acting anymore.
There's actually an obscure like Marine war film with Stone Cold Steve Austin in it as well. It's got like a negative 12% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is that are you talking about the one where it's like a bunch of prisoners on an island?
I don't probably. I didn't watch it. My son wanted to watch it and I refused.
I know that's a Steve Austin movie where like they put a bunch of criminals on an island and like they put a bunch of cameras on the island and they're taking bets like, with whoever lives the longest, gets to be set free and no longer in prison.
Like Battle Royale, but with Steve Austin.
And he's like, oh yeah, I'm getting off this island.
I put my foot, I was like, fuck no, son. We're watching Bluey. We're not doing it today. But yeah, I mean, John Cena's a darn, he's entertaining.
Well, he's got great comedy chops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Dwayne Johnson, it's a wonderful action star.
Yeah. Charismatic dude.
And then, of course, Dave Bautista. Is there any other that I'm forgetting?
Those are the big names.
How come we don't have any like, Sasha Banks or any of the female superstars coming out?
Sasha's in The Mandalorian.
Ronda Rousey was
look at me go.
Yes.
Fast and Furious.
Very true. Very true. Look at me putting my foot in my mouth.
The Miz is going to be, he's in several smaller, like they're not big.
He's in the running for Johnny Cage too, right?
Yeah.
Not two, but, did you see the Big show?
I saw precisely 30 seconds of the Big Show.
I had to watch a lot of that thanks to my little loved one.
Sorry.
It's a multi-camera sitcom with the Big Show from WWE.
Oh no.
Like straight 90s style. 100% like Full House. Not a fan. That was not a good time, but I watched hours of that.
I saw a clip of the Big Show. I think it was the Big Show, Mick Foley, Rikishi Fatu, and a third guy singing to his wife in the show, a love song or something. I assume for their anniversary. I don't know. Context clues were failing me.
Right.
But I saw the 30 seconds of it and I was like, I'm out. Boop.
Boop. That was the audio of him turning it off. Boop. Or he was booping his dog on the snoot. I'm not sure.
That's how I turn my TV off. I just like touch it. Boop.
Boop. Good night. See you in the morning. I think that's all the news we have for today. Let's move on to our main event where we're talking about comfort foods. And by foods, we mean movies and shows. And we couldn't think of another. Ooh, we should have got a Cookie Monster audio clip. All right, comfort foods.
No, cookies.
So we're going to do a little bit of a top 3, even though the idea of ranking these is ridiculous, right? Just three of them that stood out. We'll number them just for fun because we know you're all idiots and need numbers to follow along. But I'm also thinking, I'm thinking this.
We love talking down to our listeners. Hey, you dumbasses. Can you even count to 3?
Welcome to Stream Things. Fuck you.
I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I'm gonna bring up. I just want to warn you guys in advance so that if it gets to me last or something like that, that I'm not gonna like ruin the flow by bringing up other films and be like, what the hell? I had to like narrow it down and look at you go, Chris. I don't want to be that guy. So I'm gonna tell you in advance. I'm gonna mention quite a few, but I'm gonna have a main event of 3. Okay. So let's Andy start us off. What is your number 3?
Number
comfort
3 for
food?
me is gonna be How I Met Your Mother. I have watched that show. Is that her?
How do you know my mom, Carol?
Hi, Carol. Good to see you again. So that show I watched a bunch back in my addict days. I would frequently watch How I Met Your Mother when I was like dope sick and stuff. It very much turned into like a take a shitty day and make it just a little bit better. And I've revisited it a little bit in the past couple of months, just the first few episodes of the first season. Hasn't aged super duper well. And so it's kind of like a comfort food of the past for me. Like I still enjoy it very much and I think about it a lot. And like when things happen in life, you know how I don't know if you guys are like this around other people. Obviously we're like it for each other, but when I'm in public, like with friends and stuff, and I hear something from a movie, I have to say something, you know what I mean? Or be like, yeah, it reminds me of this episode of this show that you definitely never watched. You know what I mean? Like constantly do that. How I Met Your Mother is super like that for me. I constantly am like, oh yeah, there's this scene in the show that ended like 8 years ago that you guys definitely are never going to watch. And I don't know why I'm still talking, you know what I mean? But
where are you going, guys? Where are you going? Why are you leaving?
But right, but that show's amazing. Like in the middle seasons, from like 3 to 5, I would say is really really good. It kind of falls apart towards the end. You can tell they definitely ran out of steam.
How many seasons are there?
Oh, geez, I don't remember honestly. I want to say 8.
8. Okay.
I want to say 8. I'm actually going to look it up because I'm really sad that I didn't look that up beforehand. They're actually doing a spinoff show, How I Met Your Father, that I think is going to be on Disney Plus. I think, but it's going to star Hilary Duff as like the titular.
So it's like the same concept, but different characters.
Same concept. And they actually shot a pilot for a How I Met Your, I think at the time it was called How I Met Your Dad.
I'm not loving these names. It should be How I Met Your Daddy. That's the
right.
That's
For sure.
How I Met Your Daddy.
But like the
He never told you.
the creators, Carter Bays and Craig Thomas, refused to. They got like notes from the studio on like, hey, this needs to change in the pilot for the second series. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And so it just never got picked up, which I thought was pretty crazy because How I Met Your Mother was like super hot shit at the time. Let's see here. It had 9 seasons. I was close. But yeah, 8 and 9, not great. And they very much wrote themselves into a corner. Like they started filming and they actually filmed part of the ending, like in the first season, where it's like, so the conceit is that there's a older Ted who is sitting down to talk to his kids about how he met their mother. And so like, they just have like these reactions from this boy and girl who eventually aged out of that role because the show went on for like 10 years. But so they filmed way back when, like the ending of the story where it's like, How I Met Your Mother is this. And they're like, oh, okay. And they react to what the ending is. The problem is that they filmed that way back in the day. And by the time they got there, the show like had changed and the characters had, I think, gone in different directions than they intended when they started the show. And so the ending of that show is famously like a misdirect that everybody was really upset about. And so it was re-edited, I think, by fans. I think eventually there was even like an official re-edit of it. Almost like
is there a Snyder cut?
Right. Almost like a Mass Effect kind of thing where it's like, just cut out this bit because why did you do that? And, but other than that, like, and I think that's part of how comfort food works is that like you love it despite its flaws. So like whenever I would watch it, and I've been through that all seasons, like probably 7 or 8 times, something like that, shitload. even not liking the last couple of seasons, I'll still watch them just because it feels good to watch it. You know what I mean?
It's like putting on a warm blanket.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's my number 3. It's only not higher, and I've watched more of that than any other TV show ever, I think. It's just not higher because I haven't gone back to it in a good while.
Can you still stream it anywhere?
It is available on Hulu.
Ooh, Hulu.
Steve,
It was on Netflix for a long time.
what is your number 3 comfort food?
So my number 3, my number system is a little askew. I'm not doing it like best to worst. I'm doing it from points in my life. So number 3 is the earliest.
Okay.
And then number 1 will be the most current.
That's fair.
Because I think with a lot of people, comfort foods come and go. Like this phase of your life, you watch this a lot to comfort you. But as you grow and change as a person, you may still love that property, but you start watching something else that speaks more to you at that place and time in your life.
Sure.
But you'll always carry that love for the properties for your whole life. Maybe. So
Unless they have Kevin Spacey in them or something.
yeah, yes. Damn it. I really love 9 Lives.
Deep cut.
No, but so my number 3 is one that I've talked about before on the show. It started off when I was a kid. I still love it to this day. And that is just Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
Star Wars is a comfort food. I remember being a young kid and being upset about things in life. And I would just turn on Star Wars. It could be any of the original 3 because, you know, back then that's all that existed were the original 3 films. As I grew older, the prequels came out. And even though the movies weren't that great, when they came out, I wasn't super bothered by it.
We would have been like 11 or something when Phantom Menace came out.
When Phantom Menace came out, I was like, dude, Jar Jar Binks fucking rocks.
Yeah, yeah.
But then by like 2001, I was like, oh no, Jar Jar Binks sucks. I hate him. I have puberty now.
I have puberty.
I have it.
Would anyone like some?
That's like
I need to give it out.
that's like Michael Scott in The Office. Like, I declare puberty.
I got my first pubes. Look, guys, he has them in a baggie.
But with the prequels came a lot of like expanded universe, like comic books and stuff like that I was super into. And, you know, even a bigger comfort food for me at that time that is specific to that time was I was a big toy collector. So I collected a ton of action figures. I collected a ton of ships. I've got so much Star Wars bullshit.
And it would have been worth so much money if you didn't open them.
I didn't open all of them.
Oh, really?
I
You
opened
still got
half and
some?
half. Yeah.
Nice.
Back then I would collect one unopened version of every figure in a toy line. So like when Revenge of the Sith came out, they have the Revenge of the Sith line of toys. I have one of every single Revenge of the Sith toy that came out
Oh, damn.
in the box. And then some that I thought were really cool.
Well, those aren't
opened
worth
up.
shit. I thought you were talking about original Star Wars.
No. Like I don't have a lot of original stuff. I have some, but like I was collecting stuff that spoke to me as I was growing up.
Do you still have the big reader walkie-talkie thing that, remember all the toys came with a little chip
Oh,
that you
yeah.
could press it up to the thing and it
Yeah.
would like speak a line from the movie?
Yep, I
Still
have
got
those.
one of those. Nice.
But I did that because at the time, I was like an artiste, if you will. The walls of my room, the walls of my bedroom were my canvas, and my paints, my action figures. So I would decorate my room in incredibly ornate ways with these action figures. And to the point where people would come to my house and they would be like, I don't want to go into your room because it's like a museum and I don't want to touch anything because I feel like I would destroy it. And I did that because even if I was in the lowest of lows in my life at that point, I could just look anywhere in my room and be reminded of something that was cool. Like, oh, that's the General Grievous figure. Oh, that was such a cool part in Revenge of the Sith. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's why Star Wars was such a big comfort for me. Now, growing up, I no longer do that specifically with the collecting figures. A, it's expensive. B, and probably more potently, is because that feeling of looking at an action figure and being reminded of a cool thing I like kind of mutated into feeling like I had a bunch of eyes staring at me and wondering why I'm a failure. Jesus. Yeah. Like it got pretty dark. So around 2010 is when I stopped doing that because that feeling morphed as I got older and it didn't give me that satisfaction. Now I still have all my toys. I still love them. I will never get rid of them because you know, I kind of put a personality to them, and I'm like, I can't get rid of my buddies. It's like Toy Story, you know?
Sure.
Like, I don't want to like throw up all my stormtroopers, and the one clone trooper watches me walking away and goes, "See you around, partner."
Got a friend in me.
I'd shoot you, but I miss.
But
You're not going to pull a 40-year-old virgin and sell them all and start a business. And
you know, none of those toys are worth that much. I think
I'm Aquaman.
I think the toy that I own that is worth the most, other than the ones that are like autographed by people, is like a original run of the Sarge car from the movie Cars. Because because I collected cars. The first run of Cars in 2007. And that particular Sarge car was discontinued because it was painted with lead.
Oh, nice.
And so it's very rare to find, but that's like the most worthy toy I have. And it's a fucking Sarge car from the movie's Cars. Anyway, Star Wars.
How much is that worth?
Last time I checked, which was like 10 years ago, it was worth like $100, which isn't a lot.
That reminds me, I'm sorry. There's an episode of Broad City where she goes to Abby's childhood home and they're cleaning up her old room, and Alana she screams and she's like, "Oh my God, this is the Jean-Benet Ramsey Beanie Baby." And she puts it in like a front pocket baby holder, like how people put their infants hanging from their chest. And she walks around the rest of the episode with it in there.
Oh my God.
And like tries to sell it and speaks Chinese, like haggling. It's hilarious. You have to watch that show. Anyway, go on.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Are you guys like this?
Yeah. But Star Wars has always been there. I mean, it's as I've grown older, it's morphed into a bunch of other stuff. There's so many Star Wars shows and TV movies now. There's so much more than we were growing up. So
there's a whole bad batch of them now.
Oh, there is. Nice. It's harder to keep up with, but it still makes me happy. Like sometimes I'll still turn on Mandalorian and be like, this is great. I love this world.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, Mando.
So Star Wars is my number 3. Chris?
Awesome. So I had a weird time thinking about, I mean, we've all talked on the show. We've waxed quite poetically about what TV and film means to us. And I presume if you're the type of person that listens to like D tier movie and TV podcasts, then movies and TV also mean quite a lot to you. And I tried to think of what would be good things to bring up, because obviously I've talked a lot about certain things that mean a lot to me, right? So what would be interesting? And then I thought, well, what would be true? And so the honest truth is that when I am like really depressed, I've like not gone to work on purpose, can't move, don't want to talk to anybody, sad or anything like that. I'm most likely to watch something like the following: Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves. Right,
It's a great movie.
I watch that all the time.
Gavin Rossdale.
It's almost always streamable. I think right now it's on HBO Max. I don't know why. I just fucking. I know objectively why it's good, but I don't know why. Like
I watched that recently. I forgot Shia LaBeouf was in it.
Yeah. I've also watched it recently.
Into the light, I compel you.
The Underworld series of films.
Okay, yeah.
I have a huge fascination with vampires. Andy's very familiar with it of me, and so.
What are your thoughts on lichens?
Not a fan. I definitely think they can eat shit, even though the vampires are like the slave owning bad guys in this story.
Peace off, lichens.
Yeah, peace off. The Fifth Element and Chronicles of Riddick. Like, just
like Pitch Black, or
like the
specifically
second movie, Chronicles of Riddick?
the sequel.
The one where he kills a guy with a coffee mug?
The dumber one.
I'm going to kill you with my coffee mug.
I like dumb science fiction action. Not always dumb, but I love that. I like being removed from Earth when I really want to escape, right? So that's what I would say is like the honest answer of things that I fall into. And then I wanted to plug Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because I can distinctly remember as a very small child watching that on like TBS or TNT once or twice a week. And I had a thing because my mother was bipolar. She would often be just a friend to me, not as much of a mother as a friend. And so later on that got weird, where I would just like, "Hey mom, will you buy us liquor?" And she would do it. Right. And so that contributed to my alcoholism early on in life. But when I was a kid, it would be like, "Hey mom, I'm not going to go to school today. I don't feel like it." And she would say, "Okay, sweetie." Do you know what I mean? And my dad's at work. He has no idea. And so that's the kind of movies that are just playing over and over and over during hours like that when you're supposed to be at school. And so I spent probably hundreds of hours just fantasizing about being anyone other than who I was, like just a cool kid. And Sloane Peterson was the hottest thing in the world to me when I was like 9. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. And I want to drive that car. I don't even know how to drive cars. That looks amazing. Why does he wipe it with a diaper? So I love that movie. But anyway, so my number 3 would have to be Lord of the Rings. I'm going to get that one out of the way. Y'all knew that was coming. That meant everything to me when I was a kid. Every December 25th, my father would take me to see the newest Lord of the Rings film. And a lot of people of my age group did that. Excuse me. Because they came out in December. But my father and I had read all of the novels together before the movies came out. So it was like specifically a thing between he and I. And then later in life, Andy and I, that's how we met, kind of bonded over the Lord of the Rings stuff. We talked a lot about our sword fighting and, shit like that. Not like that, actual swords. So later in life, Andy mentioned his struggles with addiction. So, I would find myself, and this story is going to come up twice in this little trilogy of movies that I'm bringing up. But one memory specifically, I think I've mentioned it before. I was sleeping in the kitchen because the apartment that I was in was abandoned and there was riddled with bed bugs. And so I had moved the couch into the kitchen where they were like least prominent for whatever reason. And so there was a TV and a couch in the kitchen. It's not like I was cooking, so there was nothing getting in the way. And I distinctly remember withdrawing from opiates and just being horribly ill and watching the entire extended trilogy of Lord of the Rings and all of the behind the scenes footage. So
it's like a 24-hour ordeal.
Yes. And obviously I couldn't sleep.
Right.
And I cannot tell you what it meant to me or how, I don't know if I'm sure some of the listeners out there have struggled with addiction, but to actually be able to focus on anything is a monumental achievement. And the fact that I was actually in rapt attention to the behind the scenes footage, like just genuinely super curious and entertained about how they made this series of films and all these actor interviews. And that is what sparked my love of not just, I like movies, but I want to do this. I want to make films. I want to talk about this professionally. I want to just be surrounded by this conversation as much as I can in my life. That was where that was born, is the behind the scenes footage from those extended Lord of the Rings DVDs. So that has to be on the list for me. Andy, I don't want to wax too long. What's your number 2?
No, you're good, buddy. Lord of the Rings is definitely an honorable mention for me. And I've probably watched it more than the things that I'm going to name on the list. Just the ones that I'm bringing up are just because they're the ones that came to mind. And I mean, I think most people have a lot of comfort food things and they go in and out sometimes. But my number 2 is one that it's a cheat. It's Harry Potter. So it's all the Harry Potters. Harry Potter.
How is that a cheat?
Because it's 7 books and 8 movies.
Dude, I brought up Star Wars. It's like 20 movies, 18 shows, a bajillion movie books.
Fair enough. It felt like a cheat at a time. So you're a cheater too.
I feel attacked, sir.
Like, I have a shelf on my bookshelf that is just Harry Potter. I have the Chamber of Secrets in French. Like,
have you read it?
I have. Yeah. And how fucking dumb is that? Like,
that's not dumb.
Why would you
awesome.
read the second Harry Potter in French?
I know of all of them.
I know. But like the other day, I
wonder how they did the Tom Riddle spelling thing en français.
I don't remember. His name's not. It's actually interesting. He has a different name, so they could do that anagram in all these different languages.
That's cool.
I don't remember what his name is in French, but I don't think it's Tom Riddle.
Voldemort.
Well, Voldemort is fucking French,
right?
Voldemort.
Anyway,
but I think I can't remember. I think Voldemort of Death is the Demort. I can't remember what Vol means. I think it's like eater or something.
Nice.
Eater of Death. I honestly don't remember. Malfoy is bad language.
How do you say ass in French?
Ass? I don't remember, honestly.
Oh, damn it. Because that would have been my name, Voldemort.
Nice.
Sorry. Go on.
Macron. Got him. Sorry.
But like the other day, we should ask Enza. She said she speaks French. So Enza, when you listen to this, shoot us an email.
Yeah.
Send us a list of dirty French words.
Yes. And then we can read
draw
them.
me like one of your French girls.
So the other day, signed up for Hulu Live TV just for a day so I could watch the Oscars. And when I signed up, I flipped on to the Sci-Fi Channel and the Harry Potter marathon was on. And I sat there and I watched the entire fucking thing. Like I missed like the first movie and like half of the second one. But then I just sat and watched the entire run of Harry Potter up till the Oscars started and had a great time, dude. I fucking love those movies. They're objectively bad at times, but goddamn, is that a fun world to just soak in?
What's
you
your
know?
favorite movie?
Favorite movie is probably Prisoner of Azkaban.
That's a good one.
I'm a big fan of the director. Oh my God.
Cuarón.
Alfonso Cuarón of
Children of Men fame.
Children of Men fame.
Is that
Gravity
your
and-
favorite book?
No. My favorite book is Goblet of Fire.
Goblet of Fire.
That was the first book that really hooked my love of books. You know, I mean, like I've always read. I've been reading from a young age, and but that was the first one. Like I finished that book, and like the next one wasn't even out yet. I even sat down and did some fan fiction because it left on such a cliffhanger. Spoilers. That's when the fourth book is where everything takes a turn. It ends with Cedric Diggory dying, and
He's our king.
and we find out that
Us Hufflepuffs. He's our king, Cedric Diggory. We love him.
And I was just thinking of this video on TikTok.
I was
Chris and
gonna
were
show
watching.
him.
Donald Trump gets assigned Hufflepuff. He's like, we're going to sue Hogwarts. I can't do a Trump impersonation, but you sound like Mr. Garrison.
Yeah, you did. Mr. Hat told me I'm going to Hufflepuff.
You go to hell, Mr. Hand. But so best movie tied for me between 7 Part 1 and Prisoner of Azkaban. Best book is Goblet of Fire. But I actually sat down and did some fan fiction after that finished the fourth book because it ends on such a cliffhanger. And I was like, oh my God, I need to know what happens. It's not out yet. And so it also is kind of like when I first ever tried to do any kind of creative writing.
Do you still have that somewhere?
I don't, man. I really wish I did.
I'm glad you don't.
It would be so bad. I would probably. Local man kills himself.
Here enters Harry Potter, the coolest kid in the world with all the muscles, and his best friend, Andy Casson. Together, they're going to fight Voldemort.
Fuck you, Ron. You're out.
Oh my God.
Oh, Hermione also loves Andy Casson, who's definitely in Gryffindor.
Yeah, I was driving home from work 2 days ago, and I asked my wife what she was doing, and she said, I'm taking the Blu-ray box set, and I'm going to watch all the Harry Potters again. And I said, what? You literally just watched all of them 3 months ago, and all of them 6 months before that. And she got real deadly quiet and serious, and she was like, okay, we're married. If you want to continue to be married to me, you have to understand and accept without commentary that I'm going to watch all of the Harry Potters and read them at least once a year forever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, I'm not judging you. I'm just, I need the TV with the surround sound tonight. That's all I'm saying. You know, let's get real.
Go do it in the bedroom. Yeah, no, I also reread them very, very frequently. I'm about to start another reread. When I watched the marathon the other day, I was thinking about that. I have these wonderful illustrated editions of the first 4 books. The fifth one comes out this year, I'm pretty sure. So I'm really excited about that.
Sam is really excited about that. She has those as well.
Mm-hmm. And so I've never actually read the illustrated ones. I always get them and like flip through and look at all the art. And I'm like, this is an expensive, nice leather-bound book. It's not leather-bound, but I just wanted to say that.
I wish it was.
Anyway, so like I flip through it and then I put it on the shelf and it stays there. But this time I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to read those. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, Harry Potter's amazing, guys.
Another story about my wife. I have an autographed copy of the Game of Thrones. So George Martin signed it, the first book in the Song of Ice and Fire series. And, she was reading through and she picks that copy up. She's like, I'm going to read these. And I'm looking at her real slowly, go to the couch. And I'm like, not that one.
You put that back.
What do you mean? I'm like, just do I have to explain that I have other copies? Give me that. Don't ever touch this again.
I had a signed copy of that as well. I loaned it to an ex-girlfriend and she wouldn't give it back when we broke up.
Oh,
yeah,
no. Man. Track her down.
Dude, I even tried hitting her up like 2 years later, like, hey, can I have that book back? And she blocked me.
What's her name? I'll find her on some dating service and I'll be your catfish.
And on the 6th date, I shall retrieve it. All right, Steve, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is a property that it existed before I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it in 2010 and thus began a relationship with a video game franchise. This is a video game.
Nice.
That I'm very beholden to and I love dearly. And I put it in
Frogger.
my...
Serious Sam.
I love Frogger. Is he going to make it across that street? You don't know.
What's on the other side of the street?
What is
That's
it?
what I want to know.
Why does the frog want to get there? It's to get his babies. But
Find the chicken. Across the road.
this is Frogger.
Oh my God, that's so sad. He's going to get his babies. He just keeps getting squished.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if in the original Frogger if that was the case, but I used to play Frogger on the PlayStation 1, and that was the case. You went across the street to try to get his babies.
Wait, so is it really Frogger? Is that your series?
No, it's not Frogger. Sorry. No. This franchise, it means a lot to me. I put it in my comfort food because it very much is. I physically have been unable to partake in it in many, many years until very soon. The video game franchise I'm talking about is Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah.
If you do not know what Mass Effect is a game that it originally came out on an Xbox, but it has since it's on everything. It's made by BioWare of like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Dragon Age fame. It is a sci-fi epic over the course of 3 games. There is a 4th, but we don't talk about it. I'm specifically talking about the trilogy, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. You play as Commander Shepard, which is your avatar. You can make it a male or female. You can make his or her face any way you want, and you can play any way you want. It's famous for having Paragon or what's the evil?
I can't remember.
Good guy choices or bad guy choices, or even neutral choices. And the cool thing is the story remembers your choices each game. So if you played one way during the first game, in the second game it'll start off and the world will be as it was how you left it in the first, and that carries on through the whole trilogy. So by the end of the trilogy, you really feel like you've impacted the world of the game.
It's Renegade,
that is, yeah, Paragon and Renegade. But essentially, it's mankind has entered the world of galactic civilization that is already populated by these aliens. Essentially, it's based around, this whole civilization is based around Mass Effect relays, which are these like ancient, objects in space that allow you to essentially warp to other sections of the galaxy.
faster than light travel.
Yeah. And humanity kind of discovers that it is just a part of an already established civilization. And that allows you to kind of learn about them, learn about the political, differences between the different alien races that you come in contact with. And you eventually form a crew that's very diverse with humans, aliens, and they have their own little problems and quarrels and likes and dislikes. And you kind of lead them to save the galaxy in 3 different times. But along the way, you make friendships. And this may be the nerdiest thing I've ever said on this show, but I mean it.
Doubt it.
I don't know. I 100% mean it when I say the characters, your squad mates in Mass Effect, I view these characters in video games as legit friends. That's why it's such a comfort food, because I would be feeling down. I would turn on Mass Effect and I would just hang out with these video game characters that are not real. And I would just feel like I was hanging out with my friends, which is such a weird thing to say.
Hey, Garrus, how are you, man?
Garrus is my dude.
He's my homie.
So Garrus, Tally, I love Tally, Liara, all
Tally's
of them.
the best.
I love these games so much. They're huge RPGs, so they are time sinks, right? You're like, if you want to beat one of these games, there's 3 of them. If you want to beat one of them, you're looking at 40 to 60 hours plus of your life per game. I have beaten, specifically Mass Effect 2 and 3, I have beaten 5 times each. I have beaten the first Mass Effect only once, and that was because that game was harder for me to access, because originally it was on Xbox and didn't come over to PlayStation, which I play on, till far later. But so I've spent a lot of time in this world, and I would play different play styles. So I always play Paragon, which is the good guy
I can't
route.
help it. Yeah, same.
Some of the Renegade choices are so like devious and evil. Like if you do it, I just can't bring myself. Like there's a famous one in Mass Effect 3. It's a Renegade choice where you essentially have the option to shoot one of your squad mates that you've played this game with for a couple games, shoot him in the back and kill him. And I can never bring myself to do it. Like, even if I'm playing full Renegade, I cannot do that part because I can't shoot him in the back. That's my dude.
So what is happening soon?
When I say what's happening soon, so I played on PlayStation 3 years ago. I got a PlayStation 4 and was unable to, you can't play PlayStation 3 games on the 4 because of the way the PlayStation 3 was constructed. So I went through that whole cycle not being able to play Mass Effect. My wife got a PC, so I'm like, I'll download Mass Effect and play it on her PC. And it didn't work right because I fucking hate playing on PCs because it's just a bunch of like, oh, is your ones and zeros here? No, then you're screwed.
That's exactly how it works.
And so next week, so this coming Friday, they are remastering all 3 original Mass Effect games, and it's coming out on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And this is
So I have an opportunity
you have an opportunity to play these games
for the first time.
They're so good.
And they're not new graphics, but remastered. And
Remastered graphics, remastered gameplay, especially the first one, because the first game is a lot. Like, if you play the base game compared to the 2 and 3, it's very different and kind of hard to play. Honestly, that's why I only played it the one time. It's like, okay, I got the story. I did not particularly enjoy the gameplay of that one, but now they've kind of streamlined them so they're all like the same game.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Like the controls, the way the combat is streamlined throughout all 3. So it's a consistent experience against all 3. Also, the character creator is consistent through all 3. So if you create your character in one, they'll look the same throughout all 3 games, which may not sound like a big deal, but back in the day, that was a big deal.
I look ridiculous now. No.
Yeah, you could spend hours on your guy in the first game, and then the second game, it would like try to auto-populate it based off the ones and zeros from the first game, and it would just look like a deformed, hideous mess. But yeah, they streamlined to make them more uniform. And I highly suggest you play these games.
Garrus, don't look at me.
Baby Ruth.
It's very, very good.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pledge right here, right now on Streaming Things. I'm going to buy the Mass Effect trilogy remastered.
Nice. It's going to be your next.
Just to get closer to Steve.
Nice.
Do it. And then we can.
And apparently Garrus.
And then I can ask you all the nerdy questions like, who'd you kill on Vermeer? And you'll know what that question means.
Yeah, because I don't at this moment. I don't even know what kind of game it is.
Oh, no.
So
Well, you don't know what kind of game it is?
no, I have no idea.
It's just an RPG, like an action RPG.
Like a Skyrim? I mean, because you can create a character. I'm confused.
Did you ever play Knights of the Old Republic?
No.
Did you ever play
It's
Dragon
nothing
Age?
like Knights of the
No.
Did you ever play The Witcher?
I did.
It's like The Witcher.
I love The Witcher.
Imagine if The Witcher
3 is the best game ever made.
The Witcher 3 is the bomb. So imagine The Witcher
game.
3. It's
Not
the
the best
same
game.
type of game, but imagine you have like a gun and you're shooting things instead of swords. And
Okay. I love those kinds of games.
because there's a lot of dialogue trees where you talk to someone and you've got the little wheel and
Do you know why I don't play those games?
they take too much time.
They not only do they take time for the average person, but I have a personality quirk where I must do everything. And it takes me way longer than most people.
Oh, you will love
Like I played Cyberpunk 2077, which didn't even work for like 94 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I spent 60% of it one-shotting everyone from my just obsessive farming in the first half. So that's typically how I play those games. So we'll see, but I'm very excited and I have to do it again and again because there's 3 of them. Very excited for that.
The story's so good, man.
My number 2
Great.
is I already said Lord of the Lord of the Rings again.
Are we just going through all 3 Lord of the
This
Rings?
is the 2 towers, right? That would be awesome. That would have been a flex. This one is, I'm going to cheat again, sort of. This is the 3 flavors of the Cornetto trilogy. I was introduced to this by Andy in high school, didn't adequately appreciate it. But because of my son, and me being a terrible father, I've mentioned this many times, but he had an early, like I'm talking age 2 or 3, fixation on zombies. And so if you've had children, you know that they watch the same thing over and over and over and over. And it's usually some just inane child thing, like a stupid video on
What
YouTube.
child thing are you watching today, son?
Like, for instance, there's a YouTube channel called like Ryan's Toys, and it's just another dumb kid playing with toys. being filmed like smashing Hot Wheels together. And like a 2-year-old, if you let them, will, and it's hard not to because it's America and God damn, I just need a break. We'll just want to stare at that all the time. And so early on, I thought I cracked the code and I'm like, you like zombies, you little bastard? Check this out. Shaun of the Dead by Edgar Wright, one of my favorite directors. And if you like this and you want to watch it every 4 hours, I'll be happy with it. And he did. And we did. And so then he had like a police fixation. He wanted to be a policeman. And I was like, aha, check this out. Same guys. Oh, there's the Shaun of the Dead guys. And indeed, my son, check this out. And we watched Hot Fuzz every 6 hours for months. And I loved it every time.
Shame.
And I showed him World's Edge and he, World's End. And he didn't, well, it was like, World's Edge has nothing to do with this. Why'd you watch that? I showed him World's End and he didn't really like latch on to that. And it felt like a little wrong because of the bar hopping.
Well, as most
conceit.
people didn't latch onto that one either.
And I love that movie. And I agree. And Andy loves it.
It's so
and
good.
I watch movies with Mikey a lot. Have you ever seen the YouTube channel? With Mikey Newman? No. Excuse me, Mikey Newman. Well, listeners at home, check out a YouTube channel called Movies with Mikey. It's
great.
A brilliant watcher of film with just acerbic criticism and just lightning stuff.
Extremely talented editor.
He's awesome. But he makes a case for why World's End is the best of the trilogy and the smartest and most deft. It's very convincing, but didn't reach me. But anyway, that all of this is to say, I absolutely love this series of films. Something about the way Edgar Wright edits, I know his editor edits it, but just something about the way he does it. It's nothing but it's just snappy match cuts and like there's comedy in the language of the frames of the scenes, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just visually stunning. And I honestly think that's why my son loved him so much, is because it's almost appealing to children. Just the quick way that he cuts back and forth is visually entertaining for an ADD child mind. Like, yeah, I'm still paying attention. Because if you've had kids, they can't watch an entire 90 to 120 minute movie. It doesn't matter how cool it is. But he absolutely was obsessed with these films and it meant a lot to me. I watched them dozens and dozens of times. And I can honestly say without any hyperbole whatsoever that not one of the times that I watched it was I bored or upset to be watching it yet again, which is crazy to say about almost any movie.
The power of that film and the editing and the writing involved.
100%. I could literally watch it right now and just have a great time. Me and Andy going, it's absolutely awesome. In fact, I was very sad that I didn't get to go see Scott Pilgrim versus the World in Dolby at the AMC this past weekend because I had to work so much.
Oh, is that just a one-off?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Weekend. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely, and that's actually, I had a horrible week at work and I actually left without permission tonight. And I'm actually not ashamed to say a big part of that was me not being able to go see Scott Pilgrim in Dolby.
Wait, when was that?
This past weekend. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So I almost put Scott Pilgrim versus the World on the list. And then I think Cornetto ranks above that, but only slightly. And I've actually seen Baby Driver at least 14 times as well. So, and that's one of my favorite theatrical memories, but that's not what this episode's about. So that's the Cornetto trilogy. Andy, what is your number one arbitrarily ranked comfort food?
My number one is so fucking stupid. It's so dumb.
Good.
It's so dumb. My number one is World War Z, the
Brad Pitt film.
Brad
Okay.
Pitt zombie apocalypse movie. I have
How
seen
comforting.
that movie so many times.
Do you guys like World Wars? What about Zed?
Like, it's objectively not a great movie. Like, it had some fun things where it's like the little zombie mountain when they're hiding in Jerusalem and like the helicopters are trying to shoot like the bottom of the zombie pyramid. And like, it was a cool take on the zombie horde and what you can do with that. But like, other than that, like, there's nothing special about that movie except to me. Like, I fucking love that movie. Like, little scene where like you first discover that like how long Brad Pitt figures out how long it takes for the zombie infection to take hold. Like, it's his daughter's teddy bear that like counts with her, and so it's like 1, 2, 3, and like the that sound goes over and he sees like somebody get bit by a zombie and like that sound's clicking in his head and like he figured it out. And then later on, like he gets some zombie blood in his mouth and he runs up to a rooftop and he's about to jump and his wife's like, what are you doing now? He's like, stay away from me, stay away from me. And you can see him like standing there like nodding his head and you're like, oh, he's counting. Like I've watched this movie so many times. Like every time, like all these little things just like bring me so much joy in this just B grade movie. And I don't know what it is. I like it's part of it is like the sort of escapism that you have as a kid where it's like, I want to be that guy. You know what I mean? He's like this retired, United Nations, like field agent guy that like, and they only just kind of allude to the crazy stuff that he used to do. Like, and he's just like whip smart, like, early on when they're, in his hometown. I can't remember what city they're in starting out. But like they find a family and he, has this line with this Spanish speaking family, that they hide out in their apartment for a little while. And he says, in situations like this, the people that move are the ones that live and the people that stay put are the ones that die. We need to keep going and stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, you're such a badass, Brad Pitt. I love you so much.
I do love Brad Pitt.
I would follow you to the end of the earth.
And, yeah, it's just, it does a couple of really neat things. There's like this army base that he travels to try to figure out. Basically, the whole premise is there's a zombie apocalypse. Brad Pitt is chosen to he's helped out by a former like colleague from the United Nations who brings them to an army boat where people are being brought, like the essential people are being brought to survive. Like everybody's there for a purpose. And he gets chosen to be sent across the country to where the first reported case of the outbreak was. And they're trying to figure out where did it come from. So therefore we can figure out how can we stop this. And he gets sent with like this doctor who's supposed to be like a savant as far as like illnesses and pathogens are concerned, and everything goes sideways immediately. But there's a scene where he, when they travel to that army base where the first incident happened, where that all the people ride on bicycles, and there's a conceit where he has a satellite phone that he can talk to his wife at least once a day, and if he doesn't call, then she knows something's wrong. And like they're riding on bicycles to stay super quiet, and like she calls him, and like all hell breaks loose, and it's such a good scene. But like, it's not a good scene. That's the whole point that I'm getting at, is like nothing about this movie is like extremely well done. It's just good enough and just interesting enough. And there's a lot of, I think a big part of it is
competently made is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's competently made. It's a world trotting movie, which those are always fun. So he goes all over.
Why do you think it speaks to you in such a profound way?
I don't honestly know. Like part of it is just like the escapism. I want to be that guy. Also, I super duper love zombie movies. I like that it jumps to all these different locations. I think that it's really moving at times. Just there's a lot of like children involved plot wise, periodically. And, so the movie has a lot of heart in those regards. So with any comfort food movie, I think part of the big appeal is that you're not going to be surprised by anything that happens in it. And so like, there are times when like, I'm just emotionally incapable of dealing with something new. You know what I mean? Like, I can't handle the stress of not knowing what's going to happen to these people right now. I'm going to watch something that I know how it ends and I know all the beats through it. And like, there's just something comforting about that. And that at some point I latched onto that movie. And so I've watched it probably like, I don't know, legitimately probably like 50 times or more. I don't even know where it's streamable. I bought it, so I just stream it on Amazon.
Streamable at my house.
Right.
I like how you asked Andy that, but I brought up Chronicles of Riddick, and you were like, okay. Whatever works for you, man.
Well, that wasn't one of your top three. That was your honorable mention.
I honestly thought Andy's number one was going to be Tenet.
But yeah, dude, if y'all haven't watched World War Z, I mean, it's pretty good.
You know, like
my top 10 of all time.
So when Andy's having a rough day, you know, maybe work sucked, maybe, you know, his stress levels right through the roof. Mm-hmm. What'll make Andy feel good? World War Z.
World War Z. They made a video game pretty recently. It's pretty good.
I remember when you played that with Jimmy. Steve, What is your World War Z? What makes you feel good?
Well, based on my previous picks, again, I'm ordering them from most
most recent.
past
That's right.
to most recent. So this one is the most recent. We did Star Wars, a sci-fi fantasy epic. We did Mass Effect, a sci-fi fantasy epic.
Your adolescence.
It's only now appropriate that I do
It's destiny.
a sitcom comedy about cops in New York called Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Nice.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is my number one, is the current security blanket that I envelop myself in when life is just too hard. And as Andy said, if life's too stressful, I can't, sit down and watch something where I don't know what's going to happen to these characters. I want something happy. I want something that makes you feel good, that's comfortable, that brings a smile to my face no matter what. And that is Jake Peralta and the gang at Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Streamable on Hulu. It's an ABC or NBC, which is the Peacock.
Peacock is NBC.
NBC. It's an NBC show. You can stream it on Hulu right now. I'm in and Peacock as well, I believe. And it's just really funny. It's silly. It's zany. It's it's Andy Samberg, so it's that kind of manic, silly, juvenile type of comedy. But there's something about Brooklyn Nine-Nine that kind of he's still Andy Samberg, his silly, goofy self. But there's also some really like whip smart quips and writing outside of that that's like very clever and not quite as juvenile that you would think. I think the captain, Andre Brower, I think is how you pronounce his name. He is the best part of that show. Not only does he play an African-American cop in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and so you have the added, benefit of what that character's struggles were in his backstory, but he's also the first openly gay cop in the NYPD, and that's part of his backstory too. So I love how different of a character he is, just in terms of what his background is. And he's so deadpanned and eloquent, and he's got a great deep voice. And so just the juxtaposition of the captain and Andy Samberg's Jake Peralta is such a funny dynamic. And it's not a contentious dynamic. It is a like fatherly son dynamic. And I just really enjoy that. And the few times that Captain Holt, the few times that he lets loose and like parties, it's some of my favorite things in TV ever. Like there's a cold open where one of the other characters, Amy, I don't remember the actress's name.
Santiago, Melissa Fumero.
Yes. Her character is very much like she follows the rules. She's very particular. She's never late. She idolizes the captain. There's a cold open where Amy is 3 minutes late.
I remember that, dude.
And so all the other detectives are like taking bets to see like why Amy's late. And it ranges from like, it didn't hit her alarm clock to, Jake has this really crazy insane, like she's been abducted by terrorists. And then the captain shows up. He's like, what are we all doing? Why aren't we working? Oh, we're trying to see, why Amy's late. I'll get a part of that action. I'll say she was stopped at the bank.
She got held up in line.
She got held, and it's like this very lame scenario. And then she comes in, and they're like, "Amy, you were tell us right now why you're late." She's like, "Oh, I was held up the bank," and the captain just goes, "Hot damn!" And it's like, it's like if you follow that show, that's one of the funniest moments ever. And then, of course, there's the legendary cold open of when he makes a lineup of inmates sing Backstreet Boys. Where like he gets them all to like harmonize and sing it, and then like the one lady's like number five murdered my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
It's just really funny, and every now and then the show will sneak out and like put some social commentary in there, which I don't think hits every time that they think. I think some of those episodes can feel forced, but it just makes me happy that they do it. Because it's a show about cops, especially in the modern day, that can be problematic.
Given the current climate, I don't know how they can continue.
Yeah, and I think they do it pretty successfully because they're pretty in the writing. They acknowledge a lot of the stuff that's going on. Not every episode, but they definitely like go out of their way to like acknowledge it, and it's just my comfort food. I really like those characters; they're all funny, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So my number one is Return of the King. No. So my number one, you guys are going to mock me, and that's okay. I am who I am, and that's all that I am.
Mine is World War Z, so
actually
can't judge.
My Popeye reference was relevant, and here's why.
Is it Popeye starring Robin Williams?
My number one movie for comfort is Good Will Hunting. And I know that that's very strange, but I grew up in a very particular time in cinema where movies like that and Shawshank Redemption were just like the epitome, and Forrest Gump, God help me, right? Like I love these movies. I always will. I don't care how they're retroactively not that good, even though they won all these Oscars and stuff.
The mid-budget drama.
I love them so much.
People shitting on Good Will Hunting now?
Probably. I know they like to watch Ben Affleck go through personal things that are none of their business and laugh at him picking up his Dunkin' Donuts on his porch for some reason. That brings me no joy. Leave the man alone. That's what I say. I absolutely adore this film for all the reasons that you would expect, other than it having an actual impact on my life. Like there is a particular memory that comes to mind, but I just love this movie and I'm not ashamed to say it. I think it's extremely well written. Obviously, you know, Robin Williams having passed and the effect that he had on my childhood is huge. And so there's just a hint of that when I watch him on screen in this film, like that scene where he sits on the hill under the tree and has the pep talk with Matt Damon's character. And he tells the long story about his wife, you know what I mean? And they giggle about how she woke herself up farting. And, you know, like I always laugh in like what is the word for that? It's not like the same way you laugh at Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's like a
Mirth.
It's mirth, you know, just the human condition. You're just staring at. Mirth is a great word. You know, it makes me happy to be alive, and it makes me feel seen as a human being and someone who experiences life itself. And that's what this whole movie is to me. And there's elements of fantasy to it too. So I get all the elements that I like. Like I wish I was the genius that, you know, was a janitor at MIT and solved unsolvable math equations in my off time while mopping the floors, you know, but also too cool to want to be seen doing that. I do it for the love of it. Damn it. And there's certain little quotes that always pop. Like the other day, like Andy, you alluded to this earlier, like things bringing up weird memories of TV shows or films and just kind of wanting to experience it. But I don't even remember why. I think I was at a restaurant or something, and I don't even think there was that because I don't go there hardly ever. Somebody like spilled water out of their mouth. And I immediately thought of her character in the restaurant scene where she's like, give us a kiss. And the joke that she tells. And if you haven't seen the movie, it says that doesn't make any sense. And I don't want to explain it because it's dirty. In the movie, it's supposed to be cum. But anyway, that kind of shit, right? Like it's embedded in me. I'm reminded of it all the time.
Love Minnie Driver.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But that part of my life where I watched the extended Lord of the Rings, that same abandoned apartment that I was hiding in, for whatever reason, I only had like 4 movies, and I had used to have, you know, hundreds and hundreds. And one of them was Good Will Hunting. One of them was the theatrical version of Kingdom of Heaven. One of them was Chronicles of Riddick, which is hilarious. And so I would just,
at least it was varied.
Right. But on this particular day, and you have to, like, I'm going to paint a picture for you guys, right? My life is fraught. My dad is in prison. My mother has passed away. I have nary a friend because I'm not a good person to be friends with. I left. I'm not doing well in college. In fact, I'm just getting the loans sent to me in check form and spending them on drugs. So there is like a 2-week period of every semester where I have a few $1,000s and therefore plenty of drugs. And I'm very quote unquote happy. Right. So this is one of those periods. I have about $2,600, a big old bag of weed, and as many opiates as I need for a day or two, and my 4 movies. You know what I mean? And that's as happy as I get at that point in my life, unfortunately. And I've got my little TV, and I pop on Good Will Hunting, and I roll a blunt, and I sit there and I watch the entire like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I don't know why this stands out to me, but I'll never forget sitting there on that like little gross vinyl love seat thing that I had found in that building and just staring at the blank screen and just thinking about my life and where I needed to go and how miserable this was. And it wasn't like the fact that it was blatantly obvious that struck me with that, it was the fucking dumbass movie. Like, I just saw like Robin Williams was sitting next to me and was like, you need to go see about a girl, man, and maybe rehab. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh my God. And I don't know why. I'll never forget that. And so I actually watched Good Will Hunting recently because my wife had never seen it. And this is, I think, the true testament to a comfort food movie or property is, you know, it had been a number of years since I just knew that I loved that movie. It didn't, you know, other than that, I didn't think about it much. I watched this fucking movie with her and I just sad baby cried. Like, somebody change my diaper, please. It's been hours cried. You know what I mean? Like, it just profoundly affected. I've seen it dozens of times. What the hell? It's a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon movie. It destroyed me. My wife looked over at me and she's like, oh, this is a good movie. But I'm like, you know, he's following his dreams.
He's chasing the girl.
Ben's just a construction worker.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I'm just droning on and on. And it's weird, but like when we thought of this topic, that was the first thing I thought of. And it's something I don't talk about much. Like, I'm not like, Steve, I love Good Will Hunting. You know what I mean?
Go on.
Sir, this is a Wendy's, you know.
Hi, would you like to talk to me today about Good Will Hunting? No? Okay, bye.
I don't know. I feel weird. Like, even though like Andy picked World War Z and I feel weird, but I feel weird, but that's the answer.
Your movie won Oscars, Brad.
Yours has Brad Pitt, to be fair. Anyway, that's my number one. I mean, it's struck a chord in a dark time in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to tell that gross story of who I used to be. For listeners that don't know, I've been sober almost a decade now. So you don't have to get too weirded out. Everything's good. And I hope that everything's good for you at home as well. I think that wraps up our comfort food movie special. Next week on Streaming Things, we have a little special treat for you folks. Spiral, the Book of Saul.
From the Book of Saul.
Yeah, and from it.
Well, you want to say that one more time?
From the Book of Saul. Just sitting back in my chair.
You just wait. The Book of Saul. It's from it.
It's actually a movie.
So it debuts Friday, May 14th. So we're going to watch that. And then when we record the following evening, we're going to have an in-depth discussion. In addition to our, of course, Crossing Streams and Check the Gate segments, we'll talk about Spiral, Chris Rock's version of the legendary horror franchise. And then we got a little special treat planned for you after that discussion. So you have to stay tuned. So follow us on social media, hit us up, let us know what you're thinking. We love you all very much. Don't forget to email us at streamingthingspod@gmail.com. That's it for this week. My name is Chris.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Steve.
Streaming thing.
Happy streaming.
Happy streaming.
My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist solarian. There you go. I'm a nerd. Done. 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 There you go.